The massive silver ship hovered above Seoul for 3 days before landing. Its smooth surface reflected the sunlight, making it shine like a star in the daytime sky. When the Varashi finally emerged, the world watched with a mix of fear and hope. Han stood straight in his crisp black suit, trying not to show his nervousness. As a top diplomat for the Korean government, he had been chosen to meet the aliens first. The honor weighed heavy on his shoulders. Remember to bow slightly but maintain eye contact, his supervisor had instructed earlier that morning. Show respect but not weakness. The Varashi were tall, with bluish-gray skin that looked almost metallic. They had forearms and walked with perfect posture. Their faces had 2 large eyes with double pupils that seemed to take in everything at once. Commander Tech, the leader of the Varashi delegation, approached Han. "We bring greetings from the combined worlds of Varash," he said in perfect Korean. Though his mouth barely moved, the translator device on his chest glowed softly. "On behalf of Earth, we welcome you," Han replied, giving the practiced bow. That first meeting went well. The Varashi were formal but polite. They explained they had been watching Earth for decades before deciding humans were advanced enough to contact. They spoke of trade, cultural exchange, and peaceful relations. 6 months later, Han found himself at the center of the new relationship between humans and aliens. His days were filled with meetings, translation work, and explaining human customs. To the curious visitors, "My wife is excited to meet you," Han told Commander Tech as they drove to his home. "She is a cultural anthropologist and has many questions about Varashi society." Tech nodded stiffly. "I find the study of different cultures logical. It helps prevent misunderstandings." Han had invited the Varashi delegation to dinner at his home. His superiors thought it would help build stronger ties if the aliens experienced a regular Korean family setting. Ju had spent the entire day preparing. She was not just Han's wife, but also one of the leading experts on theoretical alien civilizations. Now that real aliens had arrived, her work had suddenly become extremely practical. "Welcome to our home," Ju said, bowing as the tall aliens ducked through the doorway. "Your dwelling is efficient," Commander Tech said, looking around the apartment. Han noticed the commander's eyes lingering on the cat tree by the window. Before he could explain, a black shape jumped down and landed silently on the floor. "Ah, this is Midnight, our cat," Ju said with a smile. Commander Tech and the 3 other Varashi stared at the small black animal. Their double pupils widened, slightly. "You keep this creature in your living space?" asked Tech. "Yes, she's our pet," Han explained. "Many humans keep animals as companions." The Varashi exchanged looks that Han couldn't quite read. Then, to his surprise, they made a series of clicking sounds that their translator devices didn't convert. They were speaking in their native language, deliberately not allowing translation. Finally, Commander Tech spoke in Korean again. "Fascinating. You provide shelter and food to an animal that serves no practical purpose?" Ju stepped forward. "Midnight is a companion. She provides emotional support and affection." "Emotional support," repeated one of the other Varashi, a scientist named from a lesser species. Midnight chose that moment to stretch, extending her claws before retracting them. She yawned, showing sharp teeth, then proceeded to groom herself, completely ignoring the aliens. "Please, let's sit for dinner," Han said, trying to move past the awkward moment. Throughout the meal, the Varashi asked polite questions about human culture and answered Ju's questions about their own civilization. They explained they came from a system with 3 habitable planets, all united under one government. They had eliminated disease, poverty, and most crime through what they called logical organization of society. But Han noticed they kept glancing at Midnight, who had settled on the windowsill to watch the proceedings with half-closed yellow eyes. "I notice you keep observing our cat," Ju said finally. "Are there no companion animals on your worlds?" "We have animals, of course," said Commander. "So, we use them for food production, medical research, and some specialized labor. But we do not bring them into our homes for companionship." The way he said the word made it sound like a strange concept. And you feed this animal daily? Asked Riss. Clean up its waste? Allow it to shed fur in your living space? For what? Gain? Han saw Ju's expression change slightly. As a cultural anthropologist, she recognized judgment when she heard it. Different species develop different relationships with the animals on their planets, she said carefully. On Earth, humans have kept pets for thousands of years. Dogs helped us hunt, cats kept rodents away from our food stores. Over time, these working relationships evolved into something more inefficient, said another Varashi, speaking for the first time. Resources spent on creatures that no longer serve their original purpose. Han felt a flash of irritation but kept his diplomatic smile. We find value in the relationship itself. Commander Tech set down his fork. Forgive our curiosity. We find this practice unusual. On our worlds, every relationship has a clear purpose and benefit. The idea of emotional attachment to an animal is foreign to us. As if sensing she was the topic of conversation, Midnight jumped down from the windowsill and walked casually across the room. The Varashi watched her with what seemed like a mixture of curiosity and distaste. To Han's surprise, Midnight approached Commander Tech and stopped right in front of him. She looked up at the alien, with those intelligent yellow eyes, tail swishing slowly. She is analyzing you, Ju said with a small smile. Cats are very perceptive. A simple predator species, said Riss dismissively. Basic instincts, nothing more. Midnight continued to stare at Commander Tech, unblinking. The Varashi shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Does it want something? He asked. Just assessing whether you're friend or foe, Han said. Cats are cautious with strangers. Primitive sentimentality, Commander Tech said, addressing his fellow Varashi rather than his hosts. This explains much about human decision-making processes. The translator caught his words, and Han felt his face grow warm. He opened his mouth to respond, but Ju touched his arm gently. Different evolutionary paths lead to different values, she said smoothly. We have much to learn from each other. The rest of the evening continued with polite conversation, but Han could sense the Varashi had made some kind of judgment about humanity based on their pets. As they prepared to leave, Commander Tech paused at the door. Thank you for the cultural exchange, he said formally. It has been informative. After the aliens left, Han turned to Ju. They think we're primitive because we keep pets. Ju nodded, picking up Midnight who had appeared at her feet. They see it as wasteful and illogical, but that's their limited perspective. She scratched behind the cat's ears and Midnight purred loudly. I don't think they understand Earth at all, Han said. From her comfortable spot in Ju's arms, Midnight watched the door where the aliens had exited. Her tail twitched once, her eyes narrowed slightly, and then she began to purr again. Neither Han nor Ju noticed the calculating look in their cat's eyes, a look that suggested Midnight understood far more about these alien visitors than anyone might suspect. 1 month after the dinner at Han's home, the Varashi officially opened their embassy in Seoul. The building was a marvel of alien architecture, tall, sleek, and slightly curved, as if it were growing out of the ground. Special materials in Aro, the walls made the building change colors throughout the day, shifting from silver in the morning to deep blue by night. Han arrived early for his first day working at the new embassy. As the main liaison between humans and Varashi, he had an office on the 3rd floor. His colleague Yoon met him at the entrance. Ready for your first day with our new alien friends? Yoon asked with a smile. She was younger than Han, but equally skilled in diplomacy. As ready as I'll ever be, Han replied. Did you bring the welcome gifts? Yoon nodded, patting her bag. Traditional tea sets, just as requested. Though I'm not sure the Varashi actually drink tea. Inside, the embassy was even more impressive. The floors seemed to absorb sound, making their footsteps silent. The walls were cool to the touch and gave off a soft light. Varashi staff moved efficiently through the halls, their 4 arms often doing different tasks at once. Commander Tech greeted them in the main hall. Welcome to the official Varashi embassy. You are the first humans to work alongside us in this capacity. We are honored, Han said with a bow. This building is remarkable. Efficiency and function are our primary values, Tech replied. Come, I will show you something interesting. He led them to a side room where several small creatures scurried across the floor. They were about the size of rabbits but looked more like lizards with fur. Their 6 legs moved quickly as they cleaned the floors with their flat bellies. These are shrills, Commander Tech explained. Biological maintenance units. They consume, waste, and clean surfaces. Yoon leaned down to look closer. They're like pets. Commander Tech's face showed a flash of something like annoyance. They are not pets. They serve a clear purpose. They are workers, not companions. Han quickly changed the subject. Please show us to our offices. We're eager to begin our work. Over the next 2 weeks, Han and Yoon settled into their roles. They helped human visitors navigate Varashi customs and helped the aliens understand Earth culture. The work was important but often challenging. Then strange things began to happen around the embassy. It started with small items going missing, an important data disk from Commander Tech's desk, a translator device left in a meeting room, a set of Varashi ceremonial objects. Then the embassy's security systems began to malfunction. Doors would open when no one was there. Lights would turn on and off in empty rooms. Most puzzling of all, the shrills began acting strangely. The normally docile creatures seemed agitated, huddling together in corners instead of cleaning. Some even tried to escape the building. One morning, Han arrived to find Commander Tech and scientist Vex, the Varashi xenobiologist, in a heated discussion. Is something wrong? Han asked. Commander Tech turned to him sharply. We are experiencing security breaches, items disappearing, systems malfunctioning. The shrills are behaving abnormally. How can I help? Han offered. We have reviewed all security recordings. Nothing unusual appears, said Vex. Her 4 hands moved in patterns that showed her frustration. Yet something is clearly happening. Could it be a technical problem? Han suggested. Our technology does not simply malfunction, Commander, Tech said stiffly. This is deliberate interference. Over the next few days, the situation grew worse. Important meetings were interrupted by false alarms. The building's climate control systems began to fail in certain rooms. And most concerning to the Varashi, more of their shrills were found hiding or trying to escape. Tension filled the embassy. Han overheard Varashi staff speaking in their clicking language, deliberately keeping their conversations private. When they saw humans approaching, they would switch back to using their translators. Yoon pulled Han aside after a particularly difficult meeting. They think humans are behind this, she whispered. I saw Commander Tech reviewing files on human sabotage techniques. That's ridiculous, Han said. Why would we sabotage the embassy? This is a chance for peaceful relations between our species. Not everyone on Earth is happy about the aliens, Yoon reminded him. There are protest groups. That evening, Han stayed late to finish some work. As he was preparing to leave, he heard a strange sound from down the hall, like something small being knocked over. He walked toward the sound, turning a corner to find a dark corridor. Hello? He called. Is anyone there? No answer came, but he thought he saw a shadow move at the far end of the hall. Han followed, his footsteps silent on the sound-absorbing floor. He entered a room he had never seen before. It appeared to be some kind of laboratory. Strange equipment lined the walls. In the center was a table with what looked like biological samples. Suddenly, the lights came on. Commander Tech and 2 security officers stood in the doorway. You should not be in this room, Commander Tech said coldly. This area is restricted to Varashi personnel only. I apologize, Han said quickly. I heard a noise and was investigating. A convenient explanation, said one of the security officers. We have detected an unauthorized presence in this section 3 times this week. Han felt his face grow hot. Are you suggesting I've been sneaking around the embassy? Before Commander Tech could answer, something moved on top of a cabinet in the corner of the room. All eyes turned to see a black cat sitting there, yellow eyes gleaming in the bright light. Midnight? Han gasped in shock. How did you... The cat jumped down gracefully and walked toward Han, her tail held high. "This creature is from your home," Commander Tech said, his voice dangerous and low. "You brought it here." "No," Han protested. "I have no idea how she got here. My home is 5 kilometers away." The Varashi security officers moved closer, their posture threatening. Midnight rubbed against Han's legs, purring loudly as if nothing was wrong. "Your pet has compromised a secure facility," Commander Tech said. "It must be removed immediately, and we will need to investigate how it entered our embassy without detection." Han carefully picked up Midnight, who settled comfortably in his arms. "I assure you I did not bring her here. I'm as surprised as you are." "Perhaps your surprise is genuine," Commander Tech said, though he clearly had doubts. "But this incident raises serious security concerns. A creature this size should not be able to enter our building without triggering alarms." As Han carried Midnight out of the embassy, escorted by security, his mind raced with questions. How had his cat traveled 5 kilometers from home? How had she gotten past the Varashi's advanced security systems? And most puzzling of all, why did it seem like she had been deliberately exploring the restricted areas of the embassy? When he reached home, Ju was waiting anxiously by the door. "Where have you been? And why do you have Midnight? I've been looking for her all day," she exclaimed. Han set the cat down and watched as she calmly walked to her food bowl as if returning from a normal day's activities. "You won't believe where I found her," he said. "Or rather, where she found me." Midnight looked back at them. Both blinked slowly and continued eating. A perfectly ordinary cat with what seemed like some very extraordinary abilities. 3 days after the incident with Midnight at the embassy, Han was called to an urgent meeting. When he arrived, he found not only Commander Tech, but also a new Varashi he had never seen before. This one wore a dark uniform with silver markings that seemed to indicate high rank. "Han, this is Admiral Zor," Commander Tech said, his voice formal. "He has arrived from Varash to oversee our transition." Han bowed slightly. "Welcome to Earth, Admiral. What transition are you referring to?" "Admiral." Zor's double pupil eyes studied Han coldly. "The transition of Earth into the Varashi resource network, of course." Han felt a chill run down his spine. "I don't understand. Our governments are still in the early stages of diplomatic relations." Admiral Zor made a dismissive gesture with one of his 4 arms. "Diplomacy is a formality. We have already determined that Earth would make an excellent resource planet. Your oceans alone contain minerals our worlds need." "But that's not what we agreed to," Han protested. "The talks were about cultural exchange and mutual trade." "Come now," Admiral Zor said, with what might have been a smile. "Surely you didn't think we traveled across the stars just to make friends? We are an empire, Han. We expand. We find resources. We use them." Commander Tech looked uncomfortable, but remained silent. Han realized the commander had known this all along. The friendly diplomatic mission had been a cover for something much more serious. "Humans will not accept this," Han said firmly. "They will have little choice," replied the Admiral. "Our technology is far superior, but we are not cruel. Humans will be treated fairly as a protectorate species." "Like the Shrills?" Han asked, thinking of the small creatures that cleaned the embassy floors. Admiral Zor's eyes narrowed. "The Shrills are biological tools. Humans would have a much higher status. You are, after all, somewhat intelligent, if inefficient and overly emotional." After the meeting, Han rushed to contact his government. Emergency sessions were called. World leaders met in secret. The news was disturbing. The Varashi fleet was already on its way to Earth, not for cultural exchange, but for what amounted to a peaceful invasion. That evening, Han and Ju sat in their living room, discussing the shocking turn of events. "We've been naive," Han said, his voice heavy with worry. "They were studying us, not befriending us." Ju nodded. "My colleagues and I noticed signs. The questions they asked were always about our resources, our defenses, our weaknesses, never about our art or music, or what makes us human." Midnight jumped onto the couch between them, settling in Ju's lap. The cat seemed unusually alert. Her ears perked forward as she listened to their conversation. "What's strange?" Han continued, is that they seem particularly dismissive of our relationship with animals, as if keeping pets makes us primitive. It's because they don't understand cooperation without dominance, Ju suggested, stroking Midnight's fur. In their world, everything must have a clear hierarchy and purpose. The next day, Han was introduced to Jin, a security specialist brought in to investigate the embassy incidents. Jin was tall and serious, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Need to see all the security footage from the embassy, Jin told Han as they walked toward the building. Every camera, every room, every hallway. The Varashi have reviewed it all, Han explained. They found nothing unusual. Jin smiled slightly. They might have missed something. Sometimes you need human eyes to see human tricks. For hours, they sat in a small room reviewing footage. The Varashi had reluctantly given them access, perhaps hoping to prove that humans were behind the strange occurrences. But as the day wore on, Jin became increasingly excited. There, he said, pointing to a shadow on one screen. And there again. Do you see it? Han squinted at the screen. It's just a shadow. Watch how it moves, Jin insisted. That's not random, that's deliberate. He played more footage from different days and different cameras. Slowly, Han began to see what Jin was seeing. Small shadows moving quickly across rooms. Brief glimpses of something dark slipping through doorways. And in one clear shot, a black tail disappearing around a corner. Midnight, Han whispered in disbelief. But how? How many times has she been here? Jin was already pulling up more footage. Look at this, he said. The screen showed an empty hallway. Then, incredibly, they watched as Midnight appeared, walking calmly down the corridor. The cat stopped at a security panel, stood on her hind legs, and pressed a specific sequence of buttons with her paw. A door slid open, and she walked through as if she had done it 100 times before. That's impossible, Han said. Cats can't operate security systems. This one can, Jin replied. And look at this. More footage showed Midnight slipping into rooms, examining Varashi technology, even accessing computer terminals by stepping on specific areas. In one remarkable sequence, she deliberately knocked a small object off a shelf, waited for a shrill to come clean it up, and then followed the creature back to its nest area. She's been spying on them, Jin said, his voice filled with wonder. And not just her. He showed Han footage from outside the embassy. Other cats, neighborhood strays, pets from nearby apartments, all seemed to be watching the building, taking turns entering through what appeared to be a small maintenance tunnel the Varashi had overlooked. But why? Han asked. They're just cats. They can't understand alien technology. Jin turned to him with a serious expression. Can't they? Humans have lived with cats for thousands of years. We think we domesticated them. But what if they've been evolving alongside us, learning, adapting? What if they understand more than we ever realized? That night, Han and Ju called Min, a cryptozoologist who had long theorized about enhanced feline intelligence. Min arrived at their apartment looking excited. I've been saying this for years, Min explained as they showed him the security footage Jin had copied. Cats have been watching us, learning from us. They understand far more than we give them credit for. But operating alien technology? Ju asked skeptically. Think about it, Min said. Cats have incredible memory, perfect night vision, sensitive hearing, and extraordinary physical abilities. They can jump 6 times their height, squeeze through spaces barely wider than their whiskers, and land perfectly from great heights. They can feel vibrations we can't detect. And they've spent thousands of years observing human technology. As they talked, Midnight sat on the windowsill, watching them with those unblinking yellow eyes. I think, Min said, lowering his voice, that when the Varashi arrived, Earth's cats recognized them as a threat, not to themselves but to us, their human companions. Han looked at Midnight with new eyes. Are you saying cats are protecting us? Min nodded. In their own way. They've been gathering intelligence, learning about the aliens, maybe even communicating with each other in ways we don't understand. The Varashi would never believe this, Ju said. They already think keeping pets is primitive. Imagine telling them our pets are actually an intelligence network. Maybe that's what we need to do, Han said slowly, a plan forming in his mind. Maybe we need to show them exactly what Earth's cats are capable of. Midnight jumped down from the windowsill and walked to Han's feet. She looked up at him and meowed once, as if in agreement. For the first time since the Admiral's arrival, Han felt a glimmer of hope. The Varashi might have superior technology and weapons, but they had overlooked something important. On Earth, even our companions had evolved to be extraordinary. The next morning, Han, Ju, Jin, and Min met to discuss their plan. They gathered around the kitchen table with coffee and notes, speaking in low voices. Midnight sat in the center of the table, watching them intently. "We need proof that the cats are working together," Jin said. "Something the Varashi can't deny." Min nodded eagerly. "I've been tracking cat movements around the city since the aliens arrived. There's a pattern. They're watching, gathering at specific points near Varashi locations. But we need more than patterns," Ju pointed out. "The Varashi only respect hard evidence." Han thought for a moment. "What about setting up our own cameras? If we can capture Midnight communicating with other cats or accessing Varashi technology, that might be enough." "I have something better," Jin said, pulling a small device from his pocket. A tracking microchip and camera, small enough to fit on Midnight's collar. They all looked at Midnight, who stared back calmly. "Will she let us?" Ju asked, reaching out to stroke the cat's black fur. "I think she understands more than we realize," Min said. "She might even know we're trying to help." Han carefully attached the small camera to Midnight's collar. The cat allowed this without protest, sitting perfectly still until the device was secure. "Now we wait," Jin said, activating the receiver on his tablet. "And watch." They didn't have to wait long. That afternoon, while Han was at the embassy trying to act normal around the Varashi, Jin called with exciting news. "You need to see this," Jin said, his voice tense with excitement. "Midnight left your apartment an hour ago. The camera recorded everything." Han made an excuse to leave work early and rushed to Jin's office. There, on a large screen, they watched footage from Midnight's collar camera. The view bounced slightly as the cat moved smoothly through the streets of Seoul. She avoided busy areas, sticking to quiet alleys and side streets. She's heading toward the embassy, Han realized, but taking a route that avoids being seen. The footage showed Midnight stopping at a small park near the embassy. There, incredibly, 6 other cats were waiting. They gathered in a circle, tails twitching, ears moving as if in conversation. "They're communicating," Min whispered, leaning forward, sharing information. After what seemed like a meeting, the cats dispersed in different directions. Midnight continued toward the embassy. The camera showed her approaching the building from the back, where a small maintenance tunnel led inside. With incredible grace, she slipped through the narrow opening. "That's how she's been getting in," Han exclaimed. "The Varashi would never think to secure such a small entrance." Inside the embassy, Midnight moved with purpose. She avoided main hallways when possible, and seemed to know the patrol patterns of the Varashi staff. When she had to cross open areas, she timed her movements perfectly to avoid detection. The most astonishing part came when Midnight reached what appeared to be a server room. There, she leaped onto a table and deliberately pressed a sequence of buttons on a control panel. A screen lit up displaying Varashi text and diagrams. "She's accessing their computer system," Jin said in disbelief. "But how can she read it? How can she understand?" They watched as Midnight studied the screen, her tail moving slowly back and forth. Then she pressed another button, and the display changed to show what looked like ship movements, the Varashi fleet approaching Earth. "She's gathering intelligence," Han realized. "She knows exactly what she's looking for." The footage continued, showing Midnight exploring restricted areas, observing Varashi meetings through ventilation shafts, and even interacting with the shrills, the small maintenance creatures that seemed terrified of her. When Midnight finally returned to the apartment, they were waiting for her. She strolled in casually, as if she hadn't just committed the most sophisticated espionage operation in Earth's history. "We need to take this to the government," Han said firmly. And then to the Varashi. They need to see what they're really dealing with. The next day, a special meeting was called at the embassy. The highest-ranking human officials gathered along, with Commander Tech, Admiral Zor, and a new arrival, Science Director Lar, the chief Varashi scientist who had been summoned to investigate the strange occurrences. Han stood before them, trying to appear confident. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. We have discovered something important about Earth that you should know before any transitions take place." Admiral Zor looked bored. "If this is a human attempt at negotiation, it's unnecessary. Our plans are set." "This isn't about negotiation," Han replied. "It's about understanding who you're really dealing with on Earth." He nodded to Jin, who started the video presentation. On the large screen, the footage from Midnight's collar played. The room fell silent as they watched the cat's deliberate movements, her coordination with other cats, and most importantly, her ability to access and apparently understand Varashi technology. Science Director Lar moved closer to the screen, all four of her arms extended in what seemed like excitement or alarm. "This is impossible," she said. "A simple animal cannot understand complex systems." "That's what we thought too," Han said. "But Earth's cats are not simple animals. They've evolved alongside humans for thousands of years, developing intelligence we never fully recognized." Admiral Zor scoffed. "A few lucky button presses, nothing more. The creature cannot possibly comprehend what it's doing." "Then explain this," Jin said, switching to live security footage from the embassy. On multiple screens, they could see cats, at least a dozen different ones, slipping through various parts of the building. They moved with clear purpose, some appearing to stand guard while others accessed systems or observed Varashi personnel. "They're everywhere," Commander Tech said, his voice suddenly uncertain. "How long has this been happening?" "Since you arrived," Min explained. "They recognized you as a potential threat to their human companions, so they began gathering intelligence." Science Director Lar was rapidly taking notes on a device. "The implications are extraordinary. A species evolving not to dominate, but to observe and protect their companions." She seemed to struggle with the concept. Admiral Zor was less impressed. "Enough of this nonsense. These are simple animals. We will capture them and study them. If they are interfering with our operations, they will be eliminated." As if on cue, the lights in the meeting room dimmed. The security screens flickered, and then showed a new image. Hundreds of cats gathering outside the embassy, sitting in perfect rows, all facing the building with unblinking eyes. "What is this?" Admiral Zor demanded. Han was as surprised as the aliens. This wasn't part of their plan. "I don't know," he admitted. Science Director Lar checked her devices. "Our systems are being accessed from multiple points throughout the building. Security protocols are being bypassed." She looked up with something like wonder in her eyes. "They're responding to the threat against them. They're communicating and coordinating." Suddenly, an alarm sounded. Commander Tech rushed to a control panel. "The shrills, they're all escaping their containment areas." On the screens, they could see the small maintenance creatures pouring out of their quarters, guided by cats who seemed to be leading them to freedom. "This is the Midnight Protocol," Min whispered, naming it on the spot. "Earth's defense system that even we didn't know about." Admiral Zor stood tall, his patience clearly at an end. "I've seen enough of this primitive planet. We will accelerate our plans. The fleet will begin the resource extraction immediately." He reached for a communication device, but before he could activate it, a black shape leaped onto the table in front of him. Midnight stood there, tail-high, yellow eyes fixed on the Admiral. The Varashi leader took a step back, suddenly uncertain. Around the room, from ventilation shafts, from under furniture, from seemingly nowhere, more cats appeared. They formed, a circle around the meeting table, silent and watchful. For the first time, Admiral Zor looked genuinely concerned. "What do they want?" Han looked at Midnight, who had not broken her stare with the Admiral. "I think," he said slowly, "they want you to reconsider your plans for Earth." Science Director Lar was scanning the cats with a handheld device. "Admiral, she said, her voice filled with surprise. These creatures are showing brain activity patterns that indicate complex thought and coordination. They are communicating somehow, and they are everywhere in our systems. As the standoff continued, Han realized that Earth's greatest defense might not be its militaries or technologies, but something the Varashi had dismissed as primitive and sentimental: the bond between species who had chosen to evolve together rather than to dominate one another. The standoff in the embassy meeting room continued. Midnight remained on the table, staring at Admiral Zor with unblinking yellow eyes. The other cats held their positions around the room. No one moved. Finally, Science Director Lar broke the silence. "Admiral, I believe we need to reassess our understanding of this planet." "Because of some clever animals?" Admiral Zor scoffed, though his posture remained tense. "This changes nothing." Commander Tech stepped forward carefully. "With respect, Admiral, it changes everything. Our initial assessment of Earth was based on incomplete information." Han watched this exchange with growing hope. Commander Tech had been dismissive of pets before, but now he seemed genuinely impressed by what the cats had shown. "The Admiral is right about one thing," Han said, drawing everyone's attention. "Cats are animals, but that's what you've been missing about Earth. We don't see that as a lesser state of being." Zhu nodded. "On Earth, different species have found ways to live together, not through domination but through mutual respect and choice." Admiral Zor made a dismissive gesture. "Sentimentality. Resources are what matter, not feelings between species." At that moment, the door to the meeting room slid open. Everyone turned to see a tall, elegant Varashi enter. This one wore elaborate silver markings that seemed to glow slightly. Even Admiral Zor straightened his posture. "Grand Overseer Kell," he said, sounding surprised. "We were not expecting you until next week." The Grand Overseer looked around the room, taking in the scene, the cats in their positions, the humans, and Varashi locked in debate. "I received some unusual communications," Grand Overseer Kell said. "Reports of security breaches unlike anything in our history. I decided to see for myself." Science Director Lar rushed forward. "Overseer, we've discovered something extraordinary. The companion animals of Earth, specifically these creatures called cats, appear to have developed a form of intelligence we didn't detect in our initial scans." Grand Overseer Kell moved closer to the table where Midnight sat. The cat turned, her attention to the newcomer, ears forward with interest. "May I?" Kell asked, looking at Han. Han nodded, not entirely sure what the Varashi leader was asking permission for. Grand Overseer Kell extended one hand slowly toward Midnight. The room held its breath. Midnight sniffed the offered hand, then, to everyone's surprise, bumped her head gently against it, a gesture of acceptance that any cat owner would recognize. "Extraordinary," Kell whispered. "It shows no fear." "She," Han corrected gently. "Midnight is a she, not an it." The Grand Overseer nodded slowly. "She then. Tell me more about these cats and how they relate to humans." For the next hour, the meeting took an unexpected turn. Sun, a veterinarian who had been called in when the situation escalated, explained feline evolution to the Varashi leaders. She described how cats had first approached human settlements thousands of years ago, not as servants, but as partners in a mutually beneficial relationship. "Cats controlled rodents that threatened our food supplies," Sun explained. "In return, they received shelter and protection. But unlike dogs who integrated completely into human hierarchy, cats maintained their independence. They never fully domesticated," Min added. "They chose to live with us while staying true to their nature." Grand Overseer Kell listened with growing interest. "In our history, when one species meets another, the stronger always dominates. The concept of different species choosing to cooperate while maintaining independence is new to us." "The Varashi evolved from hive species," Science Director Lar explained to the humans. "Our ancestors lived in strict hierarchies where every individual had a specific role for the good of the colony." "That explains a lot," Zhu said, "including why you see pets as inefficient. In a hive mindset, every relationship must have a clear purpose and benefit. Grand Overseer Kell moved to a window overlooking the embassy grounds where hundreds of cats still sat in orderly rows watching. And these creatures, these cats, recognized us as a potential threat to humans? They seem to have appointed themselves as Earth's observers and protectors, Han said. Not just of humans, but of our way of life. A way that allows different species to coexist without domination. Admiral Zor still looked unconvinced. This is all very interesting, but it doesn't change our resource needs. Earth has materials our worlds require. Perhaps there is another way, Grand Overseer Kell said, turning back to the room. One based on mutual benefit rather than extraction. Over the next few hours, the conversation shifted from conquest to cooperation. The cats gradually relaxed their positions, though they remained present throughout the embassy. Midnight stayed on the table, occasionally grooming herself, but always keeping one eye on the proceedings. I propose a new type of relationship between our worlds, Grand Overseer Kell announced finally. Not one of dominant and subordinate species, but of mutual exchange and respect. Admiral Zor looked like he wanted to object, but held his tongue in front of his superior. Commander Tech seemed relieved. We have much to learn from Earth, Science Director Lar said eagerly. This planet has developed something our worlds never did. Relationships between species based on choice rather than force. As the meeting concluded, Grand Overseer Kell approached Han and Ju. Would you permit me to visit your home? I wish to observe how you live with Midnight in a natural setting. That evening, Han and Ju hosted the most important dinner party of their lives. Grand Overseer Kell sat in their living room, watching with fascination as Midnight went about her normal routine, grooming, napping, occasionally playing with a toy or demanding attention. She does as she pleases, Kell observed, yet she clearly values your company. That's the essence of our relationship with cats, Ju explained. They're independent, but choose to be with us. There's mutual respect. On our worlds, such a relationship would be seen as chaotic without purpose, Kell said. But I see now there is purpose in it, just not one we recognized. As the evening progressed, Midnight eventually jumped onto the couch and settled next to the Grand Overseer. After a moment's hesitation, Kell slowly extended a hand. Midnight sniffed it, then pushed her head against the Varashi's fingers. Wants you to pet her, Han explained with a smile. With careful movements, Grand Overseer Kell stroked the cat's black fur. Midnight began to purr, the sound filling the quiet room. What is this vibration? Kell asked, sounding alarmed. She's purring, Ju said. It means she's happy and comfortable. It's a sign of trust. The Grand Overseer continued petting Midnight, seeming mesmerized by the simple interaction. We have nothing like this on our worlds. No connection between species that isn't based on use or function? Perhaps that's something we can teach each other, Han suggested. How to find value in relationships beyond just practical benefits. In the days that followed, the plans for Earth changed dramatically. Instead of becoming a resource planet in the Varashi Empire, Earth was designated as a special cultural and biological study zone. The fleet that had been approaching was reassigned to peaceful research missions. Commander Tech was given a new role as head of interspecies relations, a position created specifically because of what the Varashi had learned from Earth's cats. Science Director Lar began a long-term study of Earth's unique evolutionary path that had produced such complex relationships between different species. Most surprising of all, Grand Overseer Kell adopted 2 kittens from a soul animal shelter before returning to Varash. They became the first pets in Varashi history, not as status symbols or biological tools, but as companions chosen for their own sake. As for Midnight, she returned to her normal routine of naps, treats, and mysterious nighttime adventures, but occasionally, Han would notice her sitting by the window looking up at the stars with those knowing yellow eyes. And he would wonder what other secrets Earth's cats might be keeping, and what other lessons they might yet teach to beings across the universe. Because on Earth, the bond between species had never been about dominance or usefulness. It had been about something much more powerful, the choice to share a world together, each in their own way, with respect for what makes them different and appreciation for what brings them together. And that, as the Varashi had finally learned, was not a sign of primitive emotion, but of the most advanced wisdom in the galaxy,